Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into video games, a topic that's part of daily life for so many, but from a really unconventional angle.
Right.
We're not just talking about gameplay here. We're exploring a fascinating transcript that presents this, well, alternative theory about gaming's hidden origins, its claimed profound impacts, on our minds and bodies, and even some surprising connections to alternative realities.
It's certainly a unique perspective presented in this material.
Absolutely. So our mission in this deep dive is to distill the most, let's say, thought-provoking insights from this specific source, helping you become well-informed about a view that honestly often flies completely under the radar. This transcript makes some truly unique claims, and here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
So let's begin where this transcript suggests it all started. The origin of video games, according to the source. Well, it isn't what most might expect. What can you tell us about how this concept is said to have first emerged?
Well, what's particularly striking in this transcript is the claim that video games actually originate from encrypted information.
Encrypted.
Yeah. This information is said to travel through what it calls vortices of time.
Vortices is time.
From both the future and, get this, other parallel timelines. This ancient encrypted data, according to the source, then manifests as the very pixels we see on screen.
Pixels as ancient data.
Wow.
Okay.
And this foundational layer, it's described as numerical, protocol-based,
Right.
giving life to what is essentially an energy manifestation. Furthermore, this information fused with aspects of AI is posited as being present on Earth, specifically in what the transcript calls intraterrestrial regions.
Intraterrestrial. So the source is suggesting underground or inner Earth spaces. And how does it connect these regions to video games?
Precisely. These intraterrestrial parallel places are depicted in the transcript as, and I quote, real models of what is virtual.
Real models of the virtual.
They're described as energetic visual worlds that lack physical condensation, almost like alternate or subworlds.
Okay.
And what sustains these alternative worlds, according to this source, are trapped essences, both human and non-human essences.
Essences.
Yeah, acting as generators of energy for their very existence.
So the transcript suggests these aren't just virtual spaces, but they're powered by trapped energy. And the life forms within them they also described as virtual.
The source speaks of artificial life forms within these worlds, referring to them as micropixels or microorganisms.
Micropixels.
These give life and form to these manifestations. And while they're artificial on our planet, this transcript claims they're actually a natural part of ecosystems in other universes.
That's quite a leap.
It is. And this entire system, according to the source, involves manipulation by other beings through humans, integrating these microtechnologies into our physical and energetic plane.
For what purpose?
Well, the stated purpose is twofold: to generate energy for these intraterrestrial experiments and to capture essences for these alternate worlds.
That's quite an extraordinary perspective on the origins. Okay, let's shift then to the immediate impact as presented in this transcript. What does the source say happens to a human being's energetic field, their physical body, after just an hour of playing video games? What does this all imply for us according to this material?
Right. Well, this transcript raises an important point by characterizing the impact as a manipulation. It compares it to how it describes narcotics or other forms of reality evasion.
Okay, like an escape mechanism, but more.
Exactly. It posits that video games create a direct addiction, causing what it calls a disjunction.
Disjunction.
Which the source defines as a separation between the essence and the physical body.
A separation.
And the transcript notes a diverse effect on the brain, differing significantly between an adult and a child.
How so?
For children who grow up with video games, this source claims these microorganisms we mentioned, they become an integral part of their biological development, almost like an integrated chip in their brain.
An integrated chip?
Unlike adults who, according to this view, perceive it as something external.
That's a striking analogy used by the source. What specific parts of the brain are claimed to be affected by this?
Well, these energetic waves, which the transcript links to video game exposure, are said to generate either a subdevelopment or hyperdevelopment at cognitive and structural levels.
Sub or hyperdevelopment, meaning?
Subdevelopment implies like a hindering of natural growth, while hyperdevelopment suggests an unnatural acceleration in specific areas. The source specifically names the cerebellum, the hypothalamus, and the frontal cortex as being affected at the brainwave level.
Cerebellum, hypothalamus, frontal cortex.
Okay.
And this transcript suggests that children who develop with these technologies, they might find it easier to capture this type of visual information, you know?
Right, they're used to it. Exactly. But they tend to struggle more with understanding and connecting with, say, nature.
Hmm. And looking to the future, does this transcript suggest a progression? Where does this lead?
Yes, there's a clear progression foreseen for the future in this transcript. It argues this influence on the brain becomes even more progressive.
How so?
The ultimate goal, as presented here, is for a child to eventually be born with a chip already integrated.
Born with it.
Yeah. Enabling them, supposedly, to control and program their entire world. This is viewed by the source as a form of massive control exerted by other entities,
Okay.
aiming to replace the natural and organic models of the brain with artificial programming for direct control over the body, and thereby influencing the essence itself.
And this entire project, the source claims, manifests through video games.
That's the claim. Quite surprising, isn't it?
It's a lot to take in. So, beyond the physical brain, how does regular immersion in video games, according to this transcript, influence an individual's subconscious and consciousness?
Well, regular immersion, the source claims, can lead to the subconscious consciousness and even what it calls the superconsciousness,
Superconsciousness.
which it defines as the pure understanding of one's own energy and essence, becoming frozen or paralyzed.
Frozen.
Yeah. This is particularly noticeable, the transcript suggests, in individuals who already have what it calls interferences, prior contracts, or are completely subordinate to these technologies. Their natural process of understanding their inner guide, in this view, becomes annulled, frozen.
What happens to what the source calls the subliminal part of an avid player? Do they just get stuck in this frozen state?
Yes, the transcript claims they can become stuck, operating almost automatically,
Ironically.
as if guided by another consciousness. This is posited to be an interference, maybe an AI, a microchip, or a whole system of control.
Right.
And according to the source, there comes a point where the individual really struggles to differentiate between the virtual and the real, appearing like a zombie, it says, totally detached from reality, with their essence becoming minimal.
That sounds deeply concerning.
What's also highlighted here is that this state, as described in the transcript, creates easy access to other addictions, whether sexual, related to alcohol, or the pursuit of adrenaline. Players, in this view, seek to replicate the massive sensations produced by video games, but in real life.
But real life doesn't have a reset button.
Exactly. They struggle with the consequences, often wanting to reset real-life situations like they would in a game.
That certainly sounds like a very challenging state, according to this source. Is there any difference in this transcript's view between the players and those who actually program these games?
Yes, a crucial difference is noted. Those who program are often described as being in a different quantum state of creation.
A different quantum state.
Yeah. The source claims they understand their own power. They can even use these games to create consciousness towards their own essences. They're said to maintain a clear distinction between organic, natural life and the virtual electromagnetism used in games.
So they're not caught in the same loop, supposedly.
Apparently not. But for players, particularly young children, who are exposed to virtual sensory experiences without enough real-life references, think experiencing Niagara Falls virtually without ever having felt the mist, you know.
Right.
Their brains, according to the transcript, begin to accept the virtual experience as real.
Which could be problematic.
Very. This can cause past life memories to crystallize, it says, in the pituitary and pineal glands, leading to a physiological cryogenization of the body.
Cryogenization, like freezing.
Sort of, yeah, which then radiates to all organs, contributing to that zombie-like appearance the source describes.
It sounds like this transcript is suggesting there are deliberate mechanisms at play here. Are there visible or invisible elements, according to this source, designed to induce these addictions or energetic attachments?
Absolutely. It claims both visible and invisible mechanisms are at work. The addictions, as described, serve to create an effect that allows the essence to dissociate from the current experience in the body. The essence can even choose, supposedly, to leave the body and reside in these virtual worlds, maintaining only a thin thread of connection back to the physical.
Wow.
And this phenomenon, according to the transcript, opens doors to other addictions, leading to agreements with other energies that can then use these zombie bodies, as the source calls them, to live out experiences. Entities are also said to move into these intraterrestrial worlds, co-creating or manifesting through the bodies of children and adolescents, especially when there's hormonal conflict, which the source claims increases addiction incidence.
So this transcript is describing a potential future where what we might call mental illnesses are essentially entities keeping people captive,
Yeah.
using their bodies, feeding on their energy,
Yeah.
and even gestating, as the source puts it.
Yes, that's the picture it paints.
Yeah.
It's posited to happen when there's interference and a lack of self-integration between what's real and what isn't.
That's tense.
Thankfully, the transcript does note it's not yet universally severe because,
Oh.
well, not everyone has access to these virtual systems. However, it claims there is a projection for mass control, including things like virtual children born within technology using machine wombs and clones.
Machine wombs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about mental programming, symbols, or subliminal messages? Are those present in games, according to this source?
Yes, but the transcript specifies these are from particular programmers and involve mental control, not just general knowledge accessible to any player.
So specific intent.
Right. Symbols like alpha and omega, which the source refers to as the key to a Pandora's box, are said to be present. You also find symbols like swastikas, the Star of David, the Christian fish symbol, and a lot of Egyptian, Moroccan, Chinese, Taiwanese, Thai, and Indian symbology as well.
That's quite a mix. What's the purpose of using all those symbols, according to this transcript?
They're described as being used for a kind of traffic of vital energy and energy for relationships, including things like fetishism and voyeurism. And the transcript emphasizes that the core programmers behind this are not physically on the surface of Earth. They are said to be intraterrestrial and extraterrestrial.
So the human programmers.
The physical human programmers on the surface, who have free will, are essentially described as competition to these hidden entities.
That's a lot of hidden layers to consider.
Mm-hmm.
What about specific types of games, like shooter games? What specific effects do they produce, according to this source?
The effects of shooter games are described as particularly severe in the transcript.
How so?
Firstly, they are said to affect the hematoencephalic membrane, the protective layer of the brain.
The blood-brain barrier.
Exactly. Causing it to become, and these are the transcript's words, perforated, destroyed, gnawed, or broken, leading to filtrations similar to what the source claims is seen in substance addicts.
Wow, that's a strong claim.
It is. Mentally, players, in this view, can lose their reason or even become like kamikazes, recreating scenarios of violence and mortality over and over.
Okay.
Sexual and vital energy is also said to wear out, lacking self-regeneration. This energy, the transcript claims, can be possessed or taken by other entities.
Physically.
Physiologically, players can experience collapse due to starvation and dehydration, reaching critical states, often completely unaware of their physical body's reality. It's said to lead to a deep energetic dissociation of the essence from the body.
That paints a very bleak picture for those types of games. Let's expand on this and connect it to a broader timeline. When did this hidden information about video games begin to resurface with greater force, according to this source?
Well, the strongest resurgence of this encrypted information is observed in the 1960s and 1970s, but the transcript notes it operates in a peculiar loop, like the 1960s, 1860s, 1660s, and so on. It's cyclical. This period, in the source's view, marks the beginning of a significant bombardment of technology aimed at mental control.
Starting in the 60s, 70s.
Yeah. Early screens from that era, like televisions, are said to have used cognitive resonance through sounds and then visual flashes to create a constriction effect on the brain, like a squeezing or tightening, leading to issues like hydrocephalus, apparently. Children sitting in front of these screens, the transcript claims, experienced headaches, vomiting, emptiness, and an energetic centrifuge that disassociated their essence from their bodies.
That sounds quite different from modern screens.
And this technology, according to the source, constantly adapts. It remains hidden and imperceptible. The moment it becomes visible or known, they change it, always adjusting their tactics.
Always one step ahead, so to speak. So what does this all mean for the big picture of control, as described in this transcript?
The system, as laid out here, is essentially mafioso-like, it says, intertwined with a massive planetary and global control network.
Okay.
There are warlike entities, which the source calls archons and draconians.
Familiar names from some alternative research.
Indeed. Who seek to manifest physically and are claimed to require human bodies to do so. Then there are other intelligences, the pixels themselves, parasites like fungi, or various forms of artificial and technological intelligence. who don't seek a physical form, but want to exist, coexist, and essentially feed.
So different types of entities with different goals.
Exactly. And these parasitic entities, the transcript states, operate hidden, often intraterrestrially. To maintain their presence, they reportedly pay a quota, about 20% of the energy they capture, to the warlike archons and draconians.
A quota. Like cosmic rent?
Something like that, yeah.
The remaining 80% is what they retain for themselves.
And these parasitic entities, do they have specific characteristics?
What's quite specific here is that they're said to have a very particular DNA, described as pixelated squares, sound forms, and grave ways, with incidences of light energy or absence of sound, almost like an equalizer display.
Like an equalizer.
The transcript notes that programmers and sound engineers are said to understand this language.
Fascinating. And who is subsidizing these intraterrestrial experiments as per this source? These experiments, the transcript claims, are subsidized or co-created by other races, such as reptilians and greys, who provide the blueprint and the field for these activities. Insectoid entities are also mentioned as utilizing this hybrid virtual and biological technology.
A complex web of involvement, then. Are there specific entities involved in the human-facing technology we see today, according to this transcript? The tech giants, maybe?
Yes. The transcript discusses figures like Facebook, specifically referring to this entity as Zucaritas, which the source translates as sugar baby. Other entities referred to as masks and doors are also said to be deeply involved.
Masks and doors. Okay. Any relation to known figures?
The transcript implies connections, but uses these specific code names. Zucaritas is depicted as deeply hidden, almost worshipped like a deity, like Ganesha.
Wow.
While masks and doors are said to focus more on biological creations like androids, Zucaritas is described as being embedded at a deeper, energetic, technological level, gaining significant decision-making power alongside the archons and draconians.
So, very high up in this supposed hierarchy.
That's the implication. Another example in the transcript involves Japanese video games, as well as Russian and Chinese companies.
Okay.
These are described as deeply related to sensual and procreation energy. They are observed, according to this source, draining sexual chakra energy during video game tournaments.
Draining energy during tournaments.
Yes. This captured energy, mostly that 80% portion we talked about, is said to be directed to other universes, intraterrestrial worlds, and to beings that cannot self-generate their own energy. A tiny fraction, 0.001%, is supposedly reintegrated back to the human co-creators.
So these tournaments aren't just competitions in the view of this source. They're energy harvesting events.
That's the claim. No. When players participate in these tournaments, the transcript observes that they often enter another universe, another timeline, or a multiverse.
Mentally, you mean?
Mentally, energetically, yes. Their minds and potential are said to not be in this plane. They survive and subsist here, but don't actively interact socially, existing almost like ghosts or zombies.
That zombie analogy keeps coming up. And what are the projects attributed to this Zucaritas entity in the transcript?
Zucaritas' projects are described as focused on intercommunication, particularly enabling private groups that maintain a semblance of social interaction, but are always contained within hidden dark standards. This is posited as part of a dark network operating similarly to other control networks mentioned.
A dark network. What does that entail?
It reportedly involves sacrifices, abuses, violence, and what the source terms autodeceases, meaning self-termination or suicide.
Good grief.
Videos of these events, disguised as video games or cartoons through photoshopping, are said to be sold through specific non-commercial channels, accessed via costly contracts that demand an individual's energy and essence, or even their eternity.
Their eternity.
Players, described as so intoxicated by the virtual that nothing else creates adrenaline, reportedly crave feeling alive through these extreme, albeit disguised, means.
That's a truly stark and frankly chilling picture painted by this transcript. But in all this complexity, is there any hope offered? The Force mentions a specific case, Antonio. Who is Antonio, and what did you learn about him through this material?
Yes, Antonio. He's described in the transcript as a 7-year-old boy. He represents a population that the source claims is being targeted, specifically males.
Why males?
To create a desabasto, the source says, or a lack of natural biological reproduction by draining seminal energy. Antonio himself is described as drained, his development truncated. He reportedly appears 4 or 5 years old.
At 7.
Yes. And feels so much pain in life that he expresses a desire to autodecease, as the source puts it, to end his life. He was literally found curled up in a fetal position wanting to restart.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And what does the transcript say contributes to Antonio's state?
Well, his father is described as energetically disassociated from his brain. His mother has intermittent connections due to social pressure. She provides him with everything, physical clothes, food, drinks, but is portrayed as physically and energetically absent due to working extensively.
So basic needs met, but no real connection.
Exactly. Despite loving him deeply, she's unable to connect with him beyond that physical giving, according to this view.
And Antonio himself.
What's crucial to understand, the transcript indicates, is that only about 10% of Antonio's essence was present during this observation. The other 90% was playing in the metaverse.
90%. Gone into the virtual world. Wow. And what happened, according to this source, when he was given an opportunity to interact outside the game?
Well, the transcript recounts that he was able to speak, though he initially felt he didn't deserve to be well. He cited programming from his parents.
Programming?
Yeah, this programming was described as located from his navel to his rectum and genitals, extending up through his spinal column to his cerebellum like a root.
Like an energetic structure.
Exactly. When he was encouraged to deactivate and remove it, he immediately felt free.
Just like that.
Apparently. His brain, which he said he'd never seen on since his mother fed him as a baby, lit up, according to the transcript. He wanted to reconnect with that original feeling of being fed by his mother, and his essence percentage returned to 100%.
Back to 100%. Amazing.
He even began to perceive his mother crying and communicate with her in a dreamlike state.
So a reconnection happened.
Yes. And this then led to a profound understanding presented in the transcript, that Antonio's experience could be shared with millions of children globally, especially since the entities, in this view, are creating armies of zombies that are no longer needed for military purposes because they are already here, integrated. This then led to a powerful thought within the source. What if this information, this realization of freedom, could be passed to Zucaritas' own children?
The entity's children.
Who are described as being in a bunker. Even though they are described as hybrid beings with contracts, the transcript suggests they too can choose to be free if they wish.
An interesting twist.
And crucially, even though their parents are being manipulated, those children are not described as zombies themselves.
And what does the transcript suggest is the antidote to all this manipulation, to the zombie states?
The answer, as presented, was surprisingly simple. Love.
Love.
The transcript literally calls love an anti-zombie virus. By expanding this love, especially to those children in the bunker, it is said to create a transformation.
An anti-zombie virus.
Antonio described feeling beautifully burned by this warmth, this love, changing his cells. He ultimately decided he would not live this, referring to the zombie-like state, and embraced his freedom.
A conscious choice.
Yes. And this change was so palpable, the transcript notes, that even nearby birds and a dog began reacting, showing his reconnection to the natural world.
Wow. What an unexpected and ultimately hopeful turn in that story. What a journey we've just taken through this transcript. From the claimed hidden origins of video games in these intraterrestrial spaces to their purported profound effects on our biology and consciousness, and then to the powerful personal story of Antonio and the potential of what this source calls love as an anti-zombie virus.
It really highlights a crucial factor the transcript points out. The rapid propagation of information among children today.
We are fast.
Incredibly fast to act on what they learn, which means information, especially about their own energetic sovereignty, as this source frames it, can spread like wildfire.
So what does this all mean for you as you listen and consider this highly unconventional perspective? It certainly challenges us to think about how even everyday choices might connect us to these underlying currents described here, and how in the framework of this transcript, even small shifts in awareness and the expansion of that virus of love could potentially be incredibly powerful. It's certainly a compelling and provocative thought to mull over, isn't it?